Thank you all for joining us today for AbleNet University webinar. My name is Laura Parks, and I'm an Assistive Technology Specialist with TASK in Huntsville. And let's go over a few housekeeping things before I introduce myself and give you a little background about who I am. So first, after today, you will receive an email, and that email is going to have a link for the presentation slides, a certificate of attendance, and some additional handouts. There's just a one-page handout that goes along with this webinar. Also, some links to the product video demos and some special offers from AbleNet. As you also have noticed, Gloria has also from AbleNet has been posting in the chat window about information of where to use the link to download the presentations today. And I will try to talk just a little bit louder as well. With technology, if you're in this field, you know that it can be our best friend and it can also be our nemesis. Let's go over just a few tips maybe to help make this webinar flow better. You may want to maximize your screen by clicking on the link in the upper right-hand corner. Also, if you have any other web applications open, especially like Outlook, they'll be running down your bandwidth and may cause this webinar to become choppy. So you may want to close those. If you hear an echo, it may be because you got impatient and logged on twice, so just make sure you close out one of your ReadyTalk windows. And if the audio is cutting in and out, you may want to try clicking the mute audio, wait several seconds, and then click play audio to reestablish the broadcast audio feed. All right, so I'll just do a little introduction of myself and why I've chosen this topic today. So again, my name is Laura Parks, and I got my master's in special education from the University of Florida, and I have been an assistive technology specialist for the last 8 years with TASK, which is Technology Assistance for Special Consumers. Before coming to TASK, I taught high school briefly in Atlanta, where I was working with high school students that were transitioning from high school into employment, as well as I had the opportunity to work group homes briefly in Huntsville before I took the job with TASK. TASK is a nonprofit program of UCP in Huntsville, and we provide assistive technology services throughout the state, including evaluations, trainings, free informational sessions, and equipment and demo loans. We also contract with STAR, which is our State Tech Act program, and we do trainings through them throughout the state, as well as we do some reutilization and demo and loan for them as well. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, and as you can see, I've given myself the title Queen of the Dollar Tree. I'm always at the Dollar Tree or discount stores trying to find AT that's reasonable and affordable priced and just kind of thinking outside of the box. So next I would like to know a little bit about who is participating today in the webinar. So if you'll just take a minute and pick which category best describes who you are. And there'll be several poll opportunities throughout this presentation. All right, most individuals have responded now. It looks like, give you one more second. All right, it does look like we have some job coach and voc rehab employees participating today. A lot of others, we should have put a category for assistive technology specialist, some speech therapists, some OTs. So we have a pretty good variety of participants. Now this presentation, when I originally wrote it, it was for voc rehab and job coaches specifically, but hopefully everyone participating today will be able to take the information in and figure out a way to make it work for them and use it in their field. So the first thing I want to ask is, what is your view of assistive technology? I know when I graduated from University of Florida, we really didn't talk about assistive technology. We had a couple college classes on using technology in the classroom, but it really wasn't what I would consider assistive technology. And since I've been in this field now for about 8 years, I find when I say the word assistive technology, I get a lot of reactions to that. Sometimes I get people that say, well, the individual is not disabled enough, meaning they really think that assistive technology is for those that have significant physical impairments, which is just not true. I use assistive technology for lots of individuals with various abilities, whether it's a simple learning disability or maybe some attention things, forgetfulness. And then, yes, I do use assistive technology when I'm working with individuals with significant physical impairments, but that's not what AT is about. I also get that view that AT is expensive. Well, sometimes I have worked with AT that costs more than my car that I'm driving, but assistive technology isn't always that big price tagged items. And that's one of the things that I feel is a challenge as an AT specialist, is really trying to overcome that stereotype that AT is for those that are significantly impaired or that AT is too expensive. So really I'm hoping with this presentation to kind of change your view to make you realize that it's just not that. So when we talk about AT solutions, it's important to first, of course, define what assistive technology is. I always use the IDEA definition. It's any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. And so what I find sometimes is with assistive technology, we get really focused on that it's a piece of equipment. And according to IDA, it's not just that. It can also be a product system, or it can just be an item. And then I love acquired commercially. There's great companies like AbleNet that do provide commercial AT products, but sometimes we can just commercially get them off the shelf at places like Walmart or the Dollar Tree. Now, as far as modification, we'll talk some about that, because sometimes modifying is good, but sometimes it can be dangerous or it can be not fair to the individual with a disability. And as you see, what is AT really for? It's to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities. So why AT solutions for employees, for individuals that maybe are receiving supported employment services? Well, the first, because it does provide access. It can really make a difference for an individual who may or may not be able to do that job because they can use the assistive technology. It also is great for independence. With budget cuts in these days, there's not enough funding to provide every single individual a job coach in order to complete their job, nor is that economical for a business to have to hire 2 employees. So with assistive technology, often the individual can become more independent and can complete that job without the assistance of a job coach or without having someone over them to assist them. Assistive technology is also a reasonable accommodation. A lot of times in the school systems we get this that, oh, that's just too expensive, we can't afford that because we can't afford it for all the students. Well, assistive technology can be very affordable and it can become a reasonable accommodation, especially when you start to compare it to needing a job coach instead. So it definitely. And then also it is the law. The law requires an individual to have access to either employment or to daily living or to their job. And so without assistive technology, they may need it. All right. So let's talk a little bit now about what assistive technology solutions an individual may need. So when you're thinking about assistive technology solutions, it's not as simple as going to the shelf and buying a tool. You really have to have a reason for choosing the assistive technology. The easiest and most effective method I found when working with assistive technology and individuals with various abilities is the SET framework by Joy Zabella. I provided the link in the handout to Joy Zabella's website, and she has additional information. And I've modified her SET framework just slightly so it applies to individuals with employees. So the first question you have to ask is the specific person. Who is the solution for? So who's going to be using that AT? You may want to think about the person's age. So if you're a young adult that's just transitioning from high school into employment, you may be really familiar with technology and have no trouble picking up an iPad or using a computer. Now, if you're an older individual that has an onset disease, disability, you may find that that person is more resistant to using the technology just because they're not as familiar with it. For the specific person, it's also important to understand their strengths and weaknesses. We all have things we're really good at, and we all have things we're not so good at. So when we're thinking about an AT solution, what is the person's strengths and weaknesses that the solution may help them overcome their weaknesses or really plays to their strengths? And we also want to think about the personality. And this is something that's really important, and sometimes as being an AT specialist, I overlook this because I know that, oh, there's this great tool. If the person can just learn to use it, they'll be so much better. But maybe they're hesitant to use it because it makes them look different. And that is something to really consider when you're thinking about the specific person. Now, sometimes you work with individuals that are just so happy to be able to do whatever they want to do using the technology that they don't mind if they look a little different. And it's just really important that you know the specific person when you're thinking about the solution so you can accommodate those. After you think about the person, you do have to think about the environment. So where is it that they need to use the AT? For example, let's say the individual is working outside doing lawn maintenance. Well, have you ever tried to use your smartphone outside? It's a little hard to see sometimes because of the glare. You also may have things such as water if you're working outside, where you're worried that that device that you're using is going to get wet, and will it still work? Another example of an environment that may be bad is if it's a noisy environment. So in Huntsville, we have a flag making shop with our supported employment job coaches. And in the flag shop, they're using sewing machines, and it's extremely loud. So if I'm working with a consumer there that has a hearing problem and has trouble hearing their managers give them instruction, an amplification system may not help because not only is it going to amplify the boss talking to them, but it may also amplify all that sewing noise, and it would be a really noisy environment. And of course, the wet and messy environments, this is not only outside, but this could apply for inside. So if someone's working in, let's say, a housekeeping position where they're having to mop floors, you don't want them to use assistive technology that, one, if it falls in the bucket, could hurt them, or two, if it falls in the bucket, it could ruin the technology and not be effective. So when you're thinking about the solution, what is that environment? Will it work because of the noise or because they're outside or different things? The next thing to consider when you're thinking about the AT solution is what are they trying to accomplish using that technology? What is the task? So if the task is cleaning, we want to make sure that the technology is going to help with cleaning. Sorting may be a task they have to do. Maybe they have a computer task. Maybe they have an answering phone task. So you really want to think about, well, what is it the task that that job requires them to do? Because then we can find the solution. It's only after we think about the specific person, the environment, and the task do we even begin to consider what the assistive technology tools that that person may need to use. And as far as what assistive technology tools can help, once you've identified the three things, then you can research and say, I need a tool that can do this for the individual. And once you've identified the tool, you may need to learn where you can borrow it from. So many Tech Act programs throughout the country have demo and loan programs where you can do short-term loans of equipment, which is a great way to try before you buy. Sometimes stores will also let you return items within 30 days, but you do want to make sure that you can return it once the box has been opened. Sometimes there is that disclosure. Once you've decided what the right product is and you've tested it with the demo and loan, you're going to have to figure out where the funding is going to come from. That's where I like low-cost solutions because they're not, you don't have to go through a funding source such as medical insurance or even sometimes with voc rehab, you don't have to go through all the steps in order to get that funding. Sometimes lower-cost AT solutions can be purchased by the employer directly, and they don't hesitate doing it because it's not a big deal in their budget. Once you acquire your funding, you have to purchase it. And then finally, the important thing as well is implementing the tool. I've not found a single piece of AT yet that you can purchase and it works right off the shelf. You have to implement it. Really have a plan. How is this person going to use it? How are they going to learn to use it before they begin to use it in the situation? And what does it look like if they're successful? So I want to share with you now just one example of the SET framework that I've used with the consumer at our local voc rehab. This consumer, the specific person, was John. He's a young man, and he has some fine motor difficulties, especially using his wrist. So it's really difficult for him to rotate his wrist. He can grasp things, he can hold things with his hands, but moving his wrist is really difficult. Now, the environment he's working in is outside. He is doing lawn maintenance, and it's Alabama, and it's very warm, and sometimes it can get wet and humid. So it was important to find out, that's the environment. And then the task. The task that his job was requiring him to do was connecting the hose to the faucet. Well, when we think about that task, you have to be able to use usually two hands and then be able to screw that washer from the hose onto the outside faucet. But for John, thinking about the specific person, it was difficult for him because of his wrist. So his job coaches contacted Task and said, well, what are we going to do? He wants to work outside. He's very good at watering the plants, but he can't do the hose himself. And he doesn't want to ask others for help. Plus, that's not making him as independent as possible. So I took a trip down to my local hardware store, and I happened to find a tool that will work for him. That tool was a $3 Quick Connect. All I had to do was screw it into the faucet, this little plastic piece, and then the other end screwed into the hose. And for John, all he had to do was push the green barrel up to release the hose and push it down to lock it into place. So it was very simple for him to do. Now, when we tried it, we did discuss with his building person over him, his building maintenance supervisor, that this was just a standard home version of it that was $3, and that we may need to consider a more industrial strength one that's maybe made of brass or aluminum, and those cost just a little bit more, between $12 and $20. So hopefully you already see that now that we've considered the specific person, the environment, the task, and the tools, we found a great AT solution for this client so that he can be independent in using the water hose, connecting it to different faucets. Now, at the $3 price range, the company owner can afford to do it not just for the one faucet, but every faucet on that property, so it makes it simple for him. It was a great, easy solution, and it was awesome, too, that we could just go to the hardware store and purchase it. I know that there's some people that are having some technical issues. Hopefully we are getting those resolved. And remember, this will be recorded and posted online, and you can always watch it at AbleNet University at a later date. So let's finish with a little disclaimer before we jump into the next section. My disclaimer is that buying AT doesn't solve anything. When we talked about when we pick the tool, we need to worry about the implementation. So just because you see assistive technology, you find a certain tool, doesn't mean by buying it you're going to solve the problem. Now, working with lots of different school systems throughout the state, I've learned that a lot of parents are really feeling that the iPad is the AT that they can buy and will save everything. But unfortunately, that's not true. I love the iPad. It's a great tool. I've had one from day one. But it doesn't help a child talk. It doesn't help a child with their schoolwork unless it's implemented appropriately. So any AT, whether it's a $3 solution or if it's an expensive communication device, it doesn't solve the problem. Another disclaimer is cheaper isn't always better. Like I mentioned with John's case, the $3 plastic hose connector may work, but then we may also need to invest in a $12 one because it's more industrial strength and more heavy duty. And I know if you've watched any late night TV, you have seen as seen on TV things. Unfortunately, as seen on TV things are not always what they seem. For example, we purchased a rotating pad for the car seat to help an individual get in and out of the car. We saw it on TV. It was $20. We thought, oh, wow, that'll be great. Well, it really didn't do what it was supposed to do. When an individual sat on it, no matter what their weight or size was, they really couldn't pivot well. It just wasn't designed well. So what we found was that a plastic grocery bag worked sufficiently. So instead of spending our $19.99 on the as seen on TV, a free grocery bag did much better. Also, we always want to remember the person first. That's why when we consider AT, when we start with a specific person, because they really are the most important thing in this process. You know, it's not about the tool, and as much as I love talking about assistive technology tools, I love talking about what they do for individuals. So we want to keep that person in mind. So even if you have a great assistive technology tool that you just know will solve that person's problem, if they're resistant to using it, we need to keep them in mind and really respect their wishes and try to convince them, but without convincing them that this may work, give them the opportunity, but then in the end really respect them and say, okay, you don't want to try it, I understand you don't want to be different, maybe we need to consider something else. And another first is safety. I tease sometimes that I do like to adapt things. My soldering iron is set up on the desk behind me in my office right now, but I don't ever adapt things that are plugged in because I do want to consider safety of an individual. I don't want to create something that may cause another person harm if it breaks or if they don't use it correctly. So we really want to make sure when we're doing the implementation of the AT, how that AT can be successfully used safely so the individual doesn't get injured, nor does property get damaged. But most importantly, we don't want the person injured. So you won't see me adapting a lawnmower or anything like that because I really am concerned about the safety. All right, so who's ready for a little bit of a game? So now we're going to move on, and we're going to play the AT Price is Right. So hopefully you all have seen it. And this is just really a fun way to introduce assistive technology and thinking outside of the box about specific tools that may help an individual with a disability and the employment in the workplace and some different things about it. So we're going to play just a few pricing games, and you all will have the opportunity to participate through the polls. You'll have a poll on your screen, and you'll just click, and then I'll share the results once most individuals have participated. So let's take a look at our first pricing game. Our first pricing game is we're going to look at assistive technology for task analysis. This is something that almost every job coach has to do. When they have an individual that are considering a specific job that they can complete, they have to sit down and think about, well, what is required in that job? So there are some fantastic apps that can provide some assistive technology for task analysis. And we're going to decide at the end, after we view all three apps, whether we think that app is free or not free. So the first one we're going to take a look at is SnapGuide. I've done screenshots on SnapGuide, so if you pull up SnapGuide today, you may not get the first fudge cookie picture on your SnapGuide. But when you go in, you just left click up top under Feature, and then what happens is you get a search box. And you can search for specific topics. So let's say we were working with an individual that was interested in auto mechanics, and we want to teach them how to change oil. So I type in change oil, and then it gives me a variety of options as far as guides, and I've chosen the change the oil on a motorcycle. So SnapGuide is going to now do a task analysis for me on how to change the oil on a motorcycle. On the bottom, it gives you the opportunity to select what tools you need for it. So as you can see, to change the oil, we of course need motorcycle oil. We're going to need some wrenches, and we're going to need some wood blocks. On the bottom, I can also select and see the specific steps. So I can go sequential to step 1, 2, 3, and 4, or if maybe I've mastered the first few steps, I can advance to whatever step that I need to work on. So it gives me a breakdown each step. You may also notice that some of them have photographs, and then others are also videos. So SnapGuide gives you not only the materials that you need for the job or the task, but it also gives you the step-by-step, some with pictures, and some with videos. Now, if I was to go back to my search feature, it will also let me create a new snap guide. So to create a new snap guide, all you do is type in your guide name, and then you add the supplies, and you add the steps. And what's neat when you add the steps, you can do it with photos, videos, and text. So you're really supporting a variety of individuals because the photos can provide a great visual example, the text can speak it out, which may be helpful for a job coach who's trying to help show an individual what to do in each step, and also the videos. Now, because this is already on an iPad, and if you're using a newer iPad that already has the built-in camera, or you could be using this on an iPhone, then it's really simple to snap a photograph or to snap a video and import it into your Snap Guide. So that's the Snap Guide app. So really keep in mind it gives you step-by-step, gives you the materials you'll need, and it does photos and videos, and you can create your own. And now when you create your own, it does share. So if you're working with one client that's learning how to do yard maintenance and you've got 5 other ones to work with, you can share it, the guide, between all the individuals. So you're not just having to create it for one person. So let's take a look at the second app. The second app is Howcast, and this specifically is Howcast Housekeeping. In Huntsville, when people are coming to Space Camp or to view the rocket, we have a lot of guests that stay at hotels. So the hospitality industry is great for individuals with disabilities, as well as our military base, the Arsenal, has a lot of individuals with disabilities that are working on housekeeping in the different buildings on the Arsenal. So Howcast is great. This one provides step-by-step in each room of the house. So maybe I'm working on the kitchen, then I can select kitchen on the left-hand side, and then it'll pull up little videos of how to do the kitchen cleaning. So here's how to clean a ceramic tile floor. If you'll notice, it does have the video up top, and you're not seeing the video because we're not really in the app, it's just a screenshot, but it also has the words to the video as well. And then the next thing, it does tell you, just like Snap Guide, it does tell you what materials you'll need to clean the floor. And then I'm just showing you now that there are a variety of topics. And if you look, I can also check it when I'm finished. So if you've ever had a to-do list and you check off what you get done, Howcast kind of lets you do that as you're going. So you've got your videos, you've got your pictures on how to do things, and you have your step-by-step. Unfortunately, with Howcast, you cannot create your own. They're already pre-created. Now, when you go to howcast.com online, I will warn you that these videos are not done by special educators. So you may get content that's questionable. I love, one of the things I found on Howcast is how to ask a girl out on a date. And the first step is to get a job. Well, I think that that's a great point, and it's one as a special educator I may never have made to my students. So I do like sometimes that they do think outside of the box with these guides, but you do want to be careful when you're having students use this because there is some content that is a little bit of questionable. But that's the Howcast Housekeeping app, and everything in there is good. And then the final app that I'd like to show you is Conover. Now, Conover is a special needs app developer and software company, and they do work a lot with individuals with cognitive impairments. So this app is called Conover Work Skills, and this is the functional skills system. And you do not have to, once you have downloaded the app, you do not have to register with them or pay a monthly subscription fee. They do have that service for some of their other apps, but this one you don't have to pay the monthly subscription. So here you see there's some different functional work skills that you may need in order to be successful in various employments. So for this one, I just chose one topic, and I chose the topic about ear protection because I know I work with employees in the flag shop. Because it's noisy, they have to wear ear protection. So this is going to explain step by step what does it mean if you're working somewhere that you have to have ear protection. And then they show a simple video about putting on your ear protection and being safe when you're in that environment. Now, Conover is similar to Howcast. You cannot add your own content. It's the content that they've created. They are designed for individuals with cognitive impairments, so it's very simple and straightforward, and they often use very easy language as far as the communication level of it. So, who's ready for our first poll to see how well you are at this pricing game? I want you to take a minute and think about the 3 apps, SnapGuide, Howcast Housekeeping, and Conover Work Skills. Which of these do you think is free? And so here comes the poll, and just respond. Getting a lot of good participation. Thank you. All right, you guys ready to see who got the right answer? Now, I'm going to sing the little happy song in my ear so you guys can think about it when you're listening to Wheel of Fortune when someone gets it right, or the price is right. So let's see. 66% of you feel that SnapGuide is free, and you all are correct. SnapGuide is a free app as well as a free website. Now, 36% of you thought Conover Work Skills was free, and you were also correct. It's kind of a trick question. There were 2 correct answers. Conover has a couple of apps that are about $1.99 a piece, but Conover Work Skills specifically does happen to be free, or at least it was when I was preparing this presentation. App prices do change. Now, Howcast was also another one that used to be free, but in the last month or so, they started charging a fee. It's now a $1.99 app. And I've noticed, too, that Howcast website has changed a little bit, and they are going to start charging a subscription fee, which is kind of a bummer. I hate to see that that's no longer free, but I am super glad that SnapGuide is a free resource, because the ability as an AT specialist and doing some supported employment work, being able to quickly create those step-by-step guides are so hugely important and so easy using SnapGuide. So thankfully that is one of the free apps as well as Conover. So you all did a great job, and those that maybe guessed Howcast, don't worry, you're going to have another chance to play another pricing game. So let's move on to our next pricing game. This one's called AT for Prompting and Directing, because what I have found is that a lot of times job coaches spend the majority of their time, once the individual has learned what they're supposed to be doing on the job, prompting or directing the individual to do the task. Well, I don't know about you, but I do get annoyed when somebody keeps telling me to do things. Time to do this, time to do this. And I've seen students and employees that be the same way towards those that are trying to help them, that really, I'll do it when I do it. You don't have to keep reminding me. So I like to use these kind of AT so they're independently prompting or directing themselves. So as we're going through the different ones, I want you to think about what the price is. So the first one we're going to look at is the Message Mate. The Message Mate is a recordable button. I purchased it at Hallmark, one of our card stores in our area, and it can record a single message, and it does it for about 10 seconds. So I can't record more than one step, and I can't do a super long message. But for 10 seconds, it's really powerful what I can record. Now here's a little shopping tip. They also have these on sale after Mother's Day and Father's Day at half price. But I paid full price for this one. So we're going to do a quick poll now. And tell me if you think this is a $10, $25, $100, or $160 AT for prompting. Oh, I'm not sure if this one might have been too easy. All right, so let's take a look and see what most of you all thought. 63% of you felt that it was just a $10 AT, and you all are correct. So for $10, you have a simple single message communication device to let you record one thing. So for employees, I may record something like, don't forget to check in. Put it right next to the front door when they walk in their building to know, don't forget to check in and with your time clock. Check the time clock, check the time clock. So one message to prompt them to do something. So good job, everyone. Let's take a look at the next AT for prompting. This is the Livescribe Smartpen. Now, if you're an AT specialist, you probably have used this in the classroom a lot. It's fantastic for taking notes, because as you take notes, it audio records, and it syncs to the part in the paper. So, for example, one of my students a couple weeks ago in a workshop was taking notes, and she began to doodle a lot and wasn't paying attention. So when she went home and reviewed her notes, she just clicked on the doodle, and that's where the audio started, and she could catch up from what she missed when she was doodling. Well, that's great in a classroom setting, but I want to challenge you to think about using the Livescribe pen also in a work environment. So let's say you're working with a client that has a list of 5 things that they need to be able to do in the office in the morning, but yet they have a hard time reading because reading is not their strength. So it's easy to make a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe put one word. So maybe their first task is coffee. So you write 1, coffee, and then audio records into the pen. Don't forget you have to make the coffee, add in the coffee filters, and a scoop of coffee. And then maybe step 2, check the trash can. And I just write 2 trash, and then on my pen I would record, check the trash can, take it out if it's halfway full. And I can just prompt them that way. If the individual needs to repeat it, they just click it and tap it how many ever times they need to do. What's really cool with the Livescribe pen and the paper, if the person is doing the same 5 steps every day, go ahead and laminate the paper. Yes, the Livescribe pen will work even through the lamination. So it's really awesome so you don't have to worry about that piece of paper getting damaged or something spilt on it. Now, don't want to get anything spilt on the pen. But, so the AT for prompting, you can definitely use the Livescribe. So I think this one's probably going to be a given as far as the cost. Let's see if I'm right in that. Go ahead and tell us what the price is of the Livescribe Smartpen. You guys are very fast guessers. And for those, the 45%, 46% that said $100, that's correct. The Livescribe Smartpen is a great AT tool at $100. Now, if you've gotten it at $10, you guys are some savvy shoppers, and you're better than I am. Now, the Livescribe Smartpen does have a newest version that does run in the $200 range. It's called the Sky Pen, and it works wirelessly with Evernote. That wouldn't be necessary for most of your clients as far as if you're using the AT for prompting. So it is just fine to get the cheaper $100 version. Now here's a more traditional AT tool. This is the AbleNet step-by-step. Lots and lots of great uses for this tool. Honestly, if I can only have one piece of AT in the classroom, it would have to be this, because there's so many alternative ways to use it. But you can also use it for prompting and directing. So remember when I told you about the young lady making coffee? So she has to think about, well, what are the steps to make coffee? First, you fill the water, the container with water. Then you pour the water into the coffee pot. Then you put a coffee filter. Then you put the ground coffee grinds into the coffee machine, and then you turn it on. So those 5 steps. Now, if I told someone to do those 5 steps and then walked out of the room, they may or may not remember each step. Now, maybe if they've done it 100 times, they don't need that prompting. But maybe they do have a memory issue where they can't sequence those steps every single day. So I can just take my step-by-step, record on there the different steps for making coffee, and leave it next to the coffee pot, and they could just push the button in order to hear each step. Now, the nice thing about the step-by-step is it has 2 minutes of recording time. So I can put lots and lots of steps and give lots of verbal instructions. And one of the tricks I've learned when I've used the step-by-step with employment is to always repeat it twice. So that way, in case the person didn't understand what was recorded the first time, they can hit the button the second time and hear it again. And if they understood the first time, the second time is kind of like, oh yeah, I did that step, and then you go on to the next step. So how much is AbleNet selling their step-by-step for? And I'll go ahead and share the results. Surprisingly, only 29.2% of you thought that it was $160. At this time, the step-by-step is $160 from AbleNet, and it's worth every penny. Now, I have constantly tried to shop to find similar products that will let you do sequential recordings, and there are just not a lot of them out there. Sometimes you can get a little like grocery list maker that you can record messages on, but they're just not as effective as the step-by-step. But if you happen to see one, please let us know, hey, I found an alternative that's a little bit cheaper. And sometimes what you find, too, is that you may start out with the $10 message mate from Hallmark and then realize that this is not enough, and then you move on to the AT, like EnableNet, a little more expensive. That's why when we're thinking about the tools, it's important to consider a loan and demo to see if it really will meet their needs. Because $10 is not a lot to invest, but maybe you go ahead and purchase the step-by-step, and it wasn't quite the right fit for the client because they don't do verbal directions well. Maybe they need more of a visual support and prompting. So that is something to make sure to try to borrow it first to see if it would be helpful. And finally, for AT for prompting and directing, this is a silent count up and down timer. I purchased it from a company called Ultrack on Amazon.com. And what's nice is it counts up to 100 hours or down. So if I need it set up to go off every hour or every 2 hours, I can do that. The user can also select whether it vibrates or if it gives an auditory alarm. So especially if let's say the individual that's working is doing customer service, it may be embarrassing if an alarm goes off. So the vibrating can just silently prompt them, oh, I need to go do this. And it also has a protective slide cover. We've used lots of different timers for prompting and directing, and what we find is sometimes clients mess with the buttons, and then they stop the timer, they reset it, not because they're being malicious or anything like that, it just was an accident. I know when I've worn pedometers before, they get reset and you get really mad because, oh, the buttons. So this nice about this little timer is that it has that protective slide cover. And hopefully you all have been paying attention and you know the only price left, and you should all get this correctly, the price for the vibrating timer. All right, and yes, 73% of you are correct. It was just $25. Very simple, easy AT solution. And another timer place that you can look, we purchased that one online, but since then we've actually bought one at a fitness store because sometimes these timers are also used for rep counting or when you're exercising. If you're only supposed to run 20 minutes and then walk 10 minutes, they have these great timers that can do that for you. So thinking outside the box and thinking about, where can I buy AT? You never know. You can always go to like a gym or a fitness store. Well, then when we're thinking about assistive technology, sometimes you do need assistive technology for computer access. So the individual is working on a computer and just can't do it. So let's look at 4 different tools, and we're going to guess if the price is higher or lower than listed. And we're only going to do one poll for this particular pricing game. So we'll go through each tool, talk a little bit about it, and then we'll get to the pricing game. So the first tool is the Rock Adapted Joystick. I love joysticks. We have quite a few of them in our lending library, only because for an individual that's already using a joystick on a wheelchair, I already know that most likely they're going to be successful using a joystick for the computer. And now, if you're super savvy, you also know that now there is a joystick feature available for the iPads, which does make it awesome. Now, the joystick, just like this one from AbleNet, if you're using an Android tablet or a Windows tablet that has a USB port, you can just plug and play with your joystick and it will work with those 2 types of tablets. Now, the iPad, you do have to have the joystick accessory. But a joystick is great for computer access, usually because the person's already using one for the wheelchair and you know that they'll have some familiarity with doing it. So think about if this price is $499.99, if it's higher or lower. And the next AT computer access tool is the camera mouse. I love the camera mouse. It works with your built-in camera on your laptop, or you just get a little web camera, and then you have the software that you purchase and download. And what it does is wherever you move your head, it moves the mouse. So if an individual has problems using their hands or using their mouse and wouldn't be able to use an alternative mouse, but they have really good head control, they can move their head, then the camera mouse may be an effective tool for them in order to access the computer. Now, don't forget, when we thought about the Dynavox, or like a communication device that has the eye gaze system on the bottom, that is a pretty expensive AT that costs anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. So think about that when you're thinking about the price of camera mouse. Is it $2.99? Is it higher or is it lower? And then, of course, there's Microsoft Speech Recognition. Microsoft Speech Recognition lets you speak, and it types what it hears. Unfortunately, when we're thinking about the specific person, the environment, the tasks, and the tools, maybe you've noticed I have a slight Southern accent. Sometimes Microsoft Speech Recognition doesn't understand the word y'all or those other Southern slang, and that's one of the problems with using speech recognition with a computer. It also can be difficult sometimes to edit when you've talked and then going back and editing if the computer misheard you. And when we're thinking about the environment of the employee, if I'm in a cubicle and there's 8 other employees around me, they may get annoyed if I keep talking to my computer, and they may have a hard time getting their job done. So I may need to modify the environment where that individual is working in an office where they're not bothering anybody, or I may need to find a different computer access solution. So $49.99 if you think it's higher or lower in price. And the last one for computer access is the good old, as seen on TV, Easy Eyes large print keyboard. Now, yes, it was advertised as seen on TV, but many of the box stores like Walmart also sold it. It does not change the key sizes of the keyboard. It's standard key sizes, but it's about 4 times the size of the print, the font on the actual keys, and the yellow and black provide a nice high contrast. Now, I've been told, we've not experimented with this a whole lot here at Task because I don't want to ruin it, but I've been told even though it's touted as waterproof, it may not really be waterproof. But it's worth a try, especially if you have a client maybe that has some oral motor issues and has trouble swallowing, and they may have saliva that could get on the keyboard. It may be worth trying. So this keyboard is $29.99, great for an individual that may have a visual impairment, may have some fine motor issues, although if they have some fine motor issues, you may actually need more like a big keys where the key itself is bigger than the standard keyboard. All right, so here were our 4 items again: the rock adapted joystick, the camera mouse, the speech recognition, or the easy keys. So I want you to tell me which one you think is either higher or lower price, and so which computer tool is higher than the price listed. Is the joystick, do you think it's more expensive than $499? Is it the camera mouse? Do you believe it's more than $299? Is it the Microsoft Speech Recognition? Or is it the Easy Eyes keyboard for $29.99? We want to know which tool do you think is higher than the price that's listed. I have a feeling this might be one of the trickier questions. All right, let's see the results. All right, I'm going to start with the Microsoft Speech Recognition. Microsoft Speech Recognition is built into the operating system, so that's actually lower than $49.99. It is free. You don't have to purchase it. It's already on your computer, especially if you're using Windows Vista 7 or 8. Windows 8 tablets also have the speech recognition built in. Now, the Easy Eyes keyboard, it's $19.95 on TV and in most box stores. And being the clearance shopper I was down towards Tuscaloosa, where the University of Alabama is, and walked into a Walmart, and they were marked down to $4.99. So I bought 6 of them, which is a great price. And at $4 a piece, I can give them away and don't have to feel guilty that I gave away some AT from our lending library. Now, the camera mouse, I always throw this in as my ringer because I know most people will pick the camera mouse because $299 is expensive because I don't want to pay $299 for something. But knowing what it does, it's such an awesome tool because, yes, all you have to do is move your head to move the mouse. Camera mouse is absolutely free. Let me say that again. There is no cost for camera mouse. This was just an engineering project that someone worked on to help an individual that could not use the computer. Uses your webcam. You download the software. It works fantastically. You can't see me, but when I demo camera mouse for crowds, I always pick my nose because I'll just put the little dot on my nose from the computer. It's not an actual dot on my nose. And then I just move my head, move my nose, and it moves the mouse. If you've not tried camera mouse, you need to go ahead and download it for free and try it to see how well it works because it's a great free tool. Now, it won't work for everybody. Some people don't have the head control and they may need eye gaze or it's just not super accurate, and you may have to purchase a camera mouse. It's not free, like a Head Tracker Pro software that really is a little more advanced, and those are more expensive. But the camera mouse is a great free place to start. And now the correct answer for this particular poll is the Joystick. The Joystick runs about $699 from AbleNet, but again, for those individuals that have significant physical impairments, it can make a difference whether they can use the computer or not. So good job for the 23%, 15 of you all that thought that the Joystick was higher priced, and that's correct. All right, we're going to move on to our last pricing game. And in this pricing game, we're going to talk about assistive technology to modify the environment, because sometimes the individual just can't do it the way that everyone else can. So you do have to modify the environment slightly. And so while we're doing this pricing game, I want you to think about, can I purchase this online, or can I go to a store like Walmart, or maybe a hardware store, or maybe a home store and purchase this item? So we're going to ask you if it's online or off the shelf. So as we go through the 4 tools, think about that, and then in the end we'll do a poll to see which ones are available online or off the shelf. So the first thing is a writing bird. This is just a simple tool that holds an ink pen, and someone can use it to write. So maybe the individual has arthritis in their hands and can't use the correct grasp of a pen because it's too skinny, or maybe they have Parkinson's and their hand shakes. This tool is great because it really just helps stabilize your writing and can kind of prevent some of those tremors. It's just a nice full palm. Now, here's a trick. Either if you buy this writing board online or off the shelf, I'm not sure which, I'll let you guys answer that, but you could also make this. Just use a computer mouse, cut off the cord, or if it's a wireless one, and then hot glue a clothespin, and there you go. You've got your own homemade writing bird for next to nothing. Watch yard sales for those old-fashioned mouses that still have the balls in them instead of optical mouses. So you definitely can make your own writing bird. But this one, I want you to think about, did I purchase it online or did I purchase it off the shelf? The next AT environment may be the telephone. I know with our phone system, when we train new employees and we have a new intern last week, it's a little intimidating when all you see are these names on the phone. And then when you're taking a call and you're not sure, it gets nervous to transfer the call. There are phones now that use picture symbols to help support that. Now this particular Plantronics photo phone, you pick the picture in order to dial that number. So you don't have to remember the phone number. You don't have to try to dial a number from a sheet of picture symbols. But you just pick the picture of the person and it will automatically dial that person. This one does have a speakerphone and all those options as well. So it's really great for somebody that has a cognitive impairment or that needs to do it. Now this tool is a ring pull can opener. So let's say you're working with a client that works at a dog shelter and their job is to feed the dogs, and they have to pop the can on the soft dog food in order to feed the dogs. Pulling that ring often is hard on your finger, can break a nail, but especially if you have some physical impairments, it's next to impossible to open that can. So this is just a little tool. You just clip it on the ring, rock it back, and pop the top is off. And also can help you prevent from cutting yourself on those rough edges. And the last tool for your environment is the iVac touchless stationary vacuum. I think I need one of these in my house. All you have to do is you sweep the items that you're trying to do towards the stationary vacuum cleaner and it sucks it straight up. So if an individual only has one hand and they can't hold a dustpan and a broom at the same time, they can just use the broom and get it close to this little stationary vacuum and it sucks it straight up. I will tell you the cost of this is about $200. And it's often used, for example, in a hair salon. So maybe you're working with a consumer that's in a wheelchair. They can use the broom between their legs and push the hair over to this area, and then it can be sucked up. They don't have to wait for somebody to hold the dustpan for them. So our 4 items again, the writing bird, the phone, the can opener, or the vacuum. Which of these do you think can be purchased online or off the shelf? So just take a minute. And which items can be purchased off the shelf, meaning I could walk into a store and purchase it. I think it's the writing bird, Plantronics phone, the ring pull can opener, or the touchless vac. And there may be more than one answer. All right, let's see how you guys did. So the items that you could purchase, we'll start with the lowest, the Writing Bird. That is correct. The Writing Bird you cannot get off the shelf. That is something you have to special order, usually from a durable medical supply company, or you can just Google it and you'll find it. But you can't get it in the stores, but like I told you, you can just make it yourself. I believe that price is about $15 for the Writing Bird. Now, the second choice that only 18 of recent picked was the iTouch vacuum, stationary vacuum, and that is correct as well. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not correct. The vacuum cleaner you do have to order online, unless maybe you found it in a hair supply store, but I haven't found that there. It's about $200, and you can order it online, so you can't get that off the shelf. Now, the Plantronics photo phone, I did get that off the shelf, so those 41 people, the 49% that said that are correct. The phone, I found it actually in like my discount clothing store, Ross or TJ Maxx, back in the section of the home goods. You can kind of find some weird AT like that sometimes. And the ring pool can opener, yes, you can buy that off the shelf. If you walk into any store that sells kitchen goods, there's a particular brand now called XO that does like to sell a lot of grip-friendly tools for the kitchen, and that ring pull can opener can be purchased there. I think rated around $10. So it's very helpful. So thank you guys all for playing today, and the game is over now for the Price is Right for Assistive Technology. And hopefully today you understood that assistive technology is not something that's just for significantly disabled, and does not have to be super expensive. I'm giving you some store ideas in the handout. Make sure you go online to download those. Gloria will be posting the link. And someone did ask about how about the Writing Bird for capacitative stylus? I may have to go try that. I don't know if it'll work. As long as your fingers are touching the actual metal stylus, I think it probably will work. We've played with various styluses. I love getting mine at Walgreens, but I don't know about the Writing Bird. But I will definitely post it. You're welcome to follow us on Twitter, and I'll tweet about it today if you want to see how that works. And just a few more things from AbleNet as far as housekeeping. After the session, you will get a short survey. If you will please take the time to fill that out to let AbleNet know what topics you're all interested in, and as far as other things with this training. And then AbleNet University has lots of webinars that will be offered in the future, as well as a vast library of recorded webinars. So please feel free to refer friends and family members. It's a great resource for parents or for teachers so that we don't have to say it and pay it. We can just refer parents to, hey, go visit AbleNet University, come back and say, you know what, I saw this on AbleNet University. I think it would work for my child. Can we try it? A lot of times parents don't know what to ask for, so those kind of things. You'll also receive a thank you email, as Gloria has said, with a presentation and a certificate of attendance. And the last slide is just a thank you for participating today. And remember to follow AbleNet on Facebook and on Twitter for the latest updates on their products as well as promotions, so when things go on sale. And maybe they'll put the step-by-step on sale. And don't close your browser yet because you will get that short survey to pop up. And so just take a moment to complete it. And it will automatically